On this episode of How to Make Dinner, I'm making 3 delightful recipes using kabocha squash. I love kabocha squash. I love all winter squash actually, but there's something about the kabocha squash which is just extra good. It's like really, really dense and really sweet, and the flavor's kind of nutty, and it's super hearty. Like it's almost got like a meatiness to it. So kabocha is probably my favorite of the squash family, at least right now. It's just really up there. Today I wanted to run through a few of my favorite ways to eat kabocha squash right now. All 3 of these recipes are super cozy, really easy, like one pot or one pan pretty much. And they're all really good for making ahead and eating throughout the week for lunches or for leftover dinners or whatever. Sometimes kabocha squash can be a little bit tricky to find. So if for some reason you can't find it, you can easily substitute any winter squash for these recipes. Butternut would work especially well, or you could also use sweet potato. That would be totally fine. Or any like sweet pumpkin type thing. So this is a little chunk of what it looks like. I should have saved a whole one to show you, but this is just the last scraps of what I've got. So first recipe up today is a baked omelette. I love a baked omelette, and yeah, it's pretty much just the same as a frittata, but I call it a baked omelette because this one is never fried, which I'm pretty sure is where the name frittata comes from because it's fried in a pan. Instead, it's just baked in an oven-proof dish, or in this case, a brownie tin. And I like doing it in a rectangle shape because it makes it easy to cut into kind of squares or slabs, which fit really nicely onto sandwiches, which is one of my favorite ways to eat it. I do have a recipe for this, which I will link below. To make this baked omelette, it's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is take some squash and some leeks and cut them into semi kind of evenly sized pieces. I like to go about 1 centimeter thick for the squash and about 1 centimeter thick for the leeks as well. And then toss them with some olive oil and some salt, roast them at about 425 for usually about 20 minutes or 25 minutes until the squash is just soft. While the veggies are roasting, you can make the egg mixture, which is a little bit more kind of custardy than it is scrambled eggy. So it's kind of like a quiche filling. You're almost basically making like a crustless quiche here. So it's 8 eggs, and if you're wondering if I can crack 2 eggs at once, and then just some milk, some salt and pepper, and then optional is to add a herb of your choice. In this case, I had some summer savory, which I decided to throw in, which is really, really nice. Whisk that together until it's super, super smooth. I don't want to see any strands of white or yolk left over. To prepare the dish that you're going to build this omelette in, I like to choose either a brownie tin or like a casserole dish. And I just sprayed this one with a bit of vegetable spray, and I put a little parchment paper in the bottom so that I could lift out the omelet easily. And then just take the veggies out of the oven, chuck them in the bottom, kind of spread them out so that, you know, they're evenly dispersed, and then pour the egg mixture in on top. And then that just goes back into the oven a little bit lower this time at 375 for about 20 minutes. And you'll know that it's done because there won't be any jiggle in the middle anymore. It'll be like completely kind of firm without being like rubbery. It kind of won't get rubbery because of all that milk, but it's just set. And so now that you've got that, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. You can just eat it with a salad for a nice lunch or a nice dinner. You can stack it onto a sandwich. You can do it on like a grilled sandwich, like a panini type thing. You can wrap it up. I've seen a lot of people do that viral tortilla hack lately where it's like you fold the tortilla in 4. You can use this baked omelet as like one of the folds. There's an idea. It makes a great packed lunch. It's good hot, it's good cold, it's good room temperature. It's just good. I highly recommend this one. I love having it in the fridge. It's a lifesaver. And you can freeze it too. Next up is a super hearty baked rice dish with kabocha squash and prawns and goat cheese. One of my goals in life is to eat more rice. I just think it's the best stuff ever. This is such a nice thing to make on a Sunday night because the leftovers are so nice. You can eat it hot, you can eat it cold, you can eat it room temperature, kind of like the omelet, kind of like everything we're making here today. There's definitely a theme of the any temperature eating, which is one of my favorite things. And although it's really nice to make on a Sunday, it does come together in under an hour, so it's really nice to make pretty much any day of the week. To make this one, you'll need olive oil, garlic, some prawns, some chili flakes, some onion, of course, some kabocha squash, and some long grain rice. I'm using basmati rice that has been soaked for about 10 minutes or more. And some dried oregano, a little splash of beer, some chicken stock or veggie stock, and baby spinach and some goat cheese. And the goat cheese is totally optional. If you don't like the idea of goat cheese in your prawn rice, leave it out. For this one, I heated 3 tablespoons of olive oil in a stainless steel skillet over medium-high heat, and then I added the prawns. To the prawns, I added some garlic and about half a teaspoon of salt, and then I just let the prawns cook. So I do want these to cook fully at this point because they're not really going to cook anymore later. So I'm tossing the prawns in the garlic and the salt and the olive oil until they're nicely cooked through, and then I take the prawns out and just put them aside. There's still gonna be some garlic left in the pan, which is totally great because we're gonna keep building the rice dish right into this pan. Into whatever garlic and olive oil is left in the pan, I added a chopped onion and kind of sweated that down for about 5 minutes until it softened, and then added the chili flakes and the dried oregano to that. And then you can throw in the chunks of kabocha squash, and I don't peel these. I actually love the skin of kabocha. I think it's so nice. So just toss that around for a couple minutes, put the lid on, let it steam for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, toss it around again, put the lid on again, and this whole thing happens for about 5 minutes total. So it's just to give a little kickstart to the squash. So after 5 minutes or so, the kabocha is kind of like hot and, you know, starting to cook. Then you can throw in the soaked rice. Now, you might notice that you're getting a few brown bits on the bottom of the pan, and so to loosen those up, I like to add a little splash of beer or wine or even just water, just something to loosen up those brown bits. And then the stock. So I'm using chicken stock here, and it's just about pouring it in and making sure that all of the rice is submerged and all of the squash and everything is just kind of like even in there and all equally level. And then it's just a matter of putting the lid on and throwing the whole thing in the oven for about 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, the rice should have fully absorbed the liquid and it'll be fully cooked and it's gonna look so good. The final touches for this is just to stir in some baby spinach, and it looks like a lot, but then it'll cook down in no time. You know how spinach is. And then add the prawns back in and then blob your goat cheese around the top. And then I just put it back in the oven for like another 2 to 3 minutes just to heat up the prawns, and it's so lovely. This is such a nice dinner, and it's even better if you squeeze a little bit of lemon over the top. The final recipe I'm going to show you is a recent development of mine, and it's become one of my very favorite things. I'm actually just losing my marbles over it because I just think it's so good. It was definitely inspired by that ottolenghi recipe that I did a few months ago with the star anise and the squash and the Israeli couscous. This one though is so much easier, and it doesn't have any of the couscous in it. It's just more of a stew. So it's a chickpea and kabocha squash stew, and it's got some really nice cinnamon in it, and it's got some raisins, and it's just got this really nice, warm, delicious, inviting thing going on. First things first, I slice up a red onion and a yellow onion, put them in the Dutch oven, throw a tablespoon of olive oil in there and a tablespoon of salt, as well as 3 cloves of garlic. And then I just sweat those down over medium-high heat for about 5 minutes until the onions start to soften. And then I add in 2 tablespoons of za'atar powder, which I know I use all the time, and you're probably getting sick of me putting it in everything, but it's so awesome. And a tablespoon of tomato paste, as well as a teaspoon of cinnamon. So stir that around and get the onions just totally soaking up all that spicy goodness. And then you can throw in a can of canned tomatoes, either cherry tomatoes or diced tomatoes. I love the cherry ones, but I can't always find them, so I'm using diced here. Your kabocha squash, as well as a small can of chickpeas, that's about 400 grams. And 100 grams of raisins. I like to use golden raisins. And then I just fill the tomato can with water and then add that in too. Give it a really good stir. Crank up the heat to max for about, 2 or 3 minutes until it starts to bubble quite vigorously, and then turn it down to medium, pop the lid on, walk away for 20 minutes, and come back, and the squash is gonna be tender and it's gonna be juicy but not soupy. It's gonna be quite stewy, and the liquid has like a really nice body to it, and all of that squash and chickpeas have soaked up all the delicious tomatoey spiced goodness, and it's just great. So this you can serve with rice, you can serve with some couscous if you want, or you can just serve it with a big hunk of bread. I can hear my chickpea stew bubbling away. I'm gonna dish this up because I'm hungry. And what I did this morning, which I was a really big fan of, was put a little blob of homemade yogurt on top, as well as a drizzle of chili oil. And you have to have, I should do 2 bowls, shouldn't I? It's only fair. Okay. And then, because I have some really nice bread from my favorite local bakery, I'm gonna have that with it too. Oh goodness. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm ready for dinner, so I'm gonna take off and eat this now, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I hope you like this episode, and I hope you feel inspired to cook with some kabocha squash, because it's really lovely stuff. Thanks so much for being a subscriber if you are one, and thanks for coming back and watching more of my videos. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers! Ching! Oh, so good.